Thanks for being here today at the Analytics Summit.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Great to be here in Hamburg today.
And could you maybe introduce yourself and tell what you're doing at Google and what are you responsible for and what is your job, what's your daily job, what are you doing?
Well, so what I do at Google is I'm a product manager on the Google Analytics team. So what that means is managing different features of analytics. A lot of my core focus is on the core product itself, the reporting and the front end that you use. I also own a lot of the AdWords integrations and the advertising focused reporting and the acquisitions overall. So while I work on a lot of things, it spans across a lot of areas of Google Analytics. I'm more of a generalist, so to speak.
So what's your, like, if you say you work on a lot of interface features,
yeah.
What's the latest thing you worked on?
So one of the things that we talked about here in Hamburg today was the new acquisition reporting. So that's more of a front-end user-facing feature that we launched where we refreshed one of the most used reports in Google Analytics and redesigned it to be more channel-centric. It also sports new table chart that's more like a histogram view. So that's one example of something that, it's brand new. There's also a lot of core reporting features that may not be as big, but we try to make incremental improvements over several releases.
Talking about the channel groupings,
yeah.
They first appeared in the multi-channel funnel reports,
yeah.
And then it feels that they are rolled out to other reports, like in the new ABC reports and the acquisition reports.
Mm-hmm.
So it very often feels that new features are going to be introduced in some reports and then going to be rolled out across the tool. Is that going to happen with the channel reports or the channel grouping reports as well, that they're going to appear in other reports as well within GA?
So yeah, absolutely. I think the goal is to create one channel group across GA. You're right that we started with multi-channel funnels in terms of channels. And you can think of that almost as, a way to test whether this is a good feature, whether users actually adopt it or not. And then sometimes after that test is successful, we decide to roll it out more broadly, right? And channels is one of those examples. So the goal is absolutely to take channels and roll it out product-wide and enable it for even some of the more advanced like custom reporting or in the API or in segmentation and things like that.
Is that going to be the same with the demographical reports, because the interface or the look of the reports, of the charts, of the demographical reports are completely different to all other GA reports. Is that going to be the new standard for other GA reports as well?
So we're constantly experimenting with look and feel, and sometimes in demographics, for example, it might have made sense to deviate from the product. It's always a challenge, do we want to deviate or do we want to maintain our standard, right? So if there's a compelling enough case to actually deviate from our core experience, we do that. And in the case of demographic or some of the other audience-related reports, it just might be that, the way to present the data that makes the most sense to users is this particular way, and that may mean that it's not exactly in line with the other reporting. Mm-hmm. Was there a specific part of the audience reporting that you were concerned with?
No, I just thought because the style of the charts is just different to the other style of the charts. Yeah. So I thought that it might be a first step and that they're going to be rolled out to other reports as well. But it definitely makes sense for the demographical reports, yes. You are from the States, obviously.
Yeah.
So usually lots of people say that the companies and the way web analytics is done in the US is like they usually say it's about like 2-3 years in advance of the European market or in advance of Germany. Do you think that's true? And if so, where do you think are the major differences between using GA, for example, and what they do with it in the US and in Germany or in Europe?
Well, I mean, I don't want to make broad generalizations, but for example, people like yourself are pretty advanced and probably well ahead of a lot of US users. But if I was forced to generalize, I'd say, yeah, maybe the United States is ahead of some of the European nations. They seem to really value and understand web analytics better, right? The adoption seems to be higher. And for example, Google Analytics is almost like the first thing anyone in the United States thinks of when doing online measurement, right? And concepts like pushing the envelope on doing measurements, like attribution, are things that originate in the United States because you have just a lot more minds that are clustered closer together geographically, thinking about these problems. I think that's what makes a difference. For example, other markets, I think they're much more spread out, and the concentrations are not so high in particular areas. Obviously Silicon Valley is highly concentrated with technology folks, and they're trying to push the envelope on how they measure and track. And Google is obviously very much focused on this. So I think a combination of factors probably lead to it, not one single factor.
I guess you're not allowed to talk in too much detail about upcoming features of GA, and are probably not allowed to announce anything besides those things you have announced today already. But when we think about the development of GA in the future, like lots of things have changed within the last years, and it's now actually possible to upload cost data and to attach more data with custom dimensions, for example, to integrate offline data. Universal analytics is going to be rolled out much more than in the past. The user ID will be available and all that. Do you think that GA is going to head more into a BI direction, or like where do you see the split in the future between Google Analytics and the entire BI area?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I think that is sort of the natural progression for analytics, because disconnecting pure online or mobile app behavior and looking at BI as two separate things are probably not the way you want to go about measuring your success, right? So I think it's a natural progression for Google Analytics to start thinking about BI and trying to see how we can bring in other data sets to make more meaning or get more insights from your analytics data that you collect online and offline. And putting those together will probably tell the bigger story for you. So yes, we've started with some features like cost data import, other offline data import, and I think you should look to us to continue to push the envelope on that. I think we started as a online measurement tool, but there's no reason we want to just stick only to that. Our customers have people that visit their stores in the real world. They use other mediums of advertising. So ideally, I'd like to see analytics move to an area where we're able to holistically measure things that happen both offline, online, both in terms of interaction and advertising, right? And really tie together that full story so that you as the business owner can really make much better decisions.
So how are you going to handle all the different users then? Because it's quite difficult probably for you guys to to handle like the entire market and the entire world, like small businesses, enterprises, like all kinds of different industries, and the knowledge of the people, of course, is very different as well. So if you move more towards like not a BI tool, but maybe more like to much more advanced tool, adding more data, the tool is getting more and more complex for people to use. And one of the advantages of GA in the past, of course, was that it was very, very easy to use and able for everyone to use that tool. How are you going to handle that to keep up like all the people and to make everyone able to use that tool?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, we already have a pretty wide spectrum in terms of our user base. You know, at the lower end, you almost have the consumer technical user, like a blogger, or you know, the mom and pop coffee shop owner that's using GA, all the way up to the world's largest corporations that use analytics as their measurement platform. So it absolutely is a challenge for us to serve all these different segments of users. But I think at some point, you know, hopefully within the product, we're able to create a clean break where the more advanced or more power users have a little nook or a section that are more dedicated to that. And just in our front end, you know, typically we want to create an experience that serves those very simple use cases very easily, but also has some of the power tools built in that if you know to look or look hard enough, you find those. So it doesn't necessarily get in the way of our more you know, novice users, I'll call them. But those tools exist for the power users. It's not a simple thing to solve, and something we definitely struggle with. Yeah.
Are you going to integrate more tools? Like right now, AdWords and AdSense and DoubleClick is announced to be integrated for the premium product. Are you going to integrate more Google tools or more external tools as well?
So yeah, I mean, absolutely. The simple answer is yes, right? Like we were just talking about, I think having other data sets that you as a customer use and combining that with the data you track on your property, you know, will be extremely valuable to you. So while I don't want to get into too many details, the plan is to absolutely try and form more partnerships and try to see if we can work with other vendors to bring in data. Definitely within Google and externally as well.
All right. At the summit today, you already mentioned the not provided issue we have and said that you might be working on something on that. Another pain point on GA is the sampling issue. Do you have any news on that?
Well, so sampling is obviously a pain for a lot of our users, and you know, we feel your pain. This is something that we take really seriously. We're actively trying to figure out ways to scale our very large data platform to go beyond the current sampling limits. I'd rather not get into timelines or specifics. I'd rather you be surprised when we announce it. But you know, I can tell you that we are very much interested in trying to solve this problem. We're working very hard on it, and hopefully in the near future you'll hear something where you'll be very happy to hear.
All right, that sounds very good. One last question for today. I know that it's quite easy to fall in love with Google Analytics, and I guess you are in love with that tool as well. But what do you think is the biggest pain point? What do you really don't like about GA? Is there anything you really think this sucks?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm completely in love with the product, and this is prior to me even being on the analytics team. So I've been a user of the product, and I've enjoyed it. I think one of the things we don't do very well is the thing we kind of touched upon, which is, sometimes we tend to overcomplicate things or add too much complexity, and sometimes we make it hard to reveal some of the more advanced features. So I think today, if I was criticizing the product, even though it's hard to criticize our own baby, I'd say that we don't do a good job balancing, complexity and ease of use, right? And over the years, our user interface has served a lot of the users very well. But at this point, it might be getting to the point where it's overloaded, right? And really, we might be getting to the point where we have to start rethinking that and exploring what's the next big leap in analytics. If we were starting from scratch today, would we build what we have today, right? And really starting to think big and exploring new ideas on how to restructure our information and reporting.
All right, Nikhil.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks
a lot
me.
for being here in Hamburg today at the Analytics Summit, and enjoy the evening.